IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode on the Musafir Stories. Hope you're all well and keeping safe. Now, before we get on with today's episode, some personal news to share with all of you. We are overjoyed to announce that going forward, the Musafir Stories will be distributed by the IVM Podcast Network. IVM, or Indus Vox Media, is India's premier podcast network and has been the pioneer in the Indian market. It is an absolute honor for us to be partnering with IVM as we continue on our journey exploring India. What does this mean to you, you may think? For the existing listener, not much changes. You can still continue to hear us on your favorite podcast app, in addition to us being available on the IVM app and website. For the IVM listeners, we hope you like and enjoy the podcast. Eagerly looking forward to hearing your feedback. As for today's episode, we speak with Preethi Parthasarathy, the Peppy travel girl, as she takes us to one of the most colorful cities of India. Let's jump onto the episode and find out more. We'd love to welcome Preethi Parthasarathy, the Peppy travel girl, to the Musafir Stories.
Hey Preeti, welcome to the Musafir Stories.
Hi Saif, hi Faiza. Thanks so much for having me here. Really excited to be on this podcast.
We are really excited to have you, Preeti.
Yeah, really excited to be talking to a ace traveler and also a fellow podcaster now. So really looking forward to this. Preeti, the introduction I gave about you is very short and concise. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and when you started traveling?
Yeah, so I started traveling about 6 years ago. I was working with a bank at the time, and that's when I took like my first solo trip. And I feel like once that bug bit me, there was just no looking back. And I did like a bunch of other trips before I quit that, and I started creating content for my own channels. So I have a blog by the name of Peppy Travel Girl, an Instagram by the same name, a YouTube by the same name, and I also have a podcast called Travels, Tales and Takes with Preeti. And I have to add that you guys have been a massive inspiration for me. I feel like I listened to a lot of your episodes just to get an idea of, how it's actually done before I started doing mine. So for me, it's like really special to be here on your podcast as well.
Oh, thank
Likewise,
you, Preeti.
we always look up to your travels, and obviously the podcast is also great just for the content as well as the lovely guests you managed to have. It's been a pleasure for us as well.
And even your YouTube videos, we thoroughly enjoy them. So we're really happy to have you.
Thank you so much, really. Thanks a lot.
Lovely. So, Preeti, now that we have covered off the introductions as well as a little bit about yourself, why don't you go ahead and tell us and our listeners where you're taking us to today?
I'm really excited about what we're going to be talking about because Jodhpur is a very, very special city to me. I feel like it's one of those places that I can keep going back to for a lot of reasons. I think one reason, like I told you earlier, is that my sister was studying over there. So for me, it used to just be an excuse to go to Jodhpur. And of course, Jodhpur being itself was like the icing on the cake. It is such a beautiful, beautiful city. There's so much of heritage, so much of culture. Everything about it is great. So I'm really excited to be talking about Jodhpur today.
Okay, we are really excited to listen to your part.
Yeah. And a very, very colorful city as with the rest of, or most of Rajasthan. So really looking forward to this. Just in terms of a little bit of a geographical orientation, Preeti, if you would like to call out where Jodhpur is, for maybe some of our listeners who are listening to this for the first time or people from abroad who don't have a good idea.
Right. So Jodhpur is in Rajasthan. It is somewhere in the center of Rajasthan. I think that's that's what I can think of because it's not really towards any direction. It's quite centrally located. It is the second biggest city, right? So it's one of centrally located cities of Rajasthan.
Yeah. And what about getting to Jodhpur, Preeti? What are the best options?
You can fly into Jodhpur. So Jodhpur airport is connected earlier it was only connected through Air India and through Jet Airways at the time, but now there are a lot of carriers that travel to and from. It also helps that there are a lot of educational institutes there, which is what has created like a really good travel network. Apart from that, there is the Jodhpur Junction, which is a railway station, again very well connected from major cities in India, and well, not just the major cities, it's quite well connected through train as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, definitely. And also, just to add in a little bit of historical perspective to this as well, right? Jodhpur, the name has got nothing to do with Jodha Bai or Jodha Akbar of Jodha Akbar fame. It's actually named after, the king Rao Jodha, the Rajput chief, who actually founded this city in 1459, I believe. So it's been around over about 500 years or so. And even over time, right, just given... Well, we'll be covering a lot of the places in Jodhpur and the different influences. You'll see that over time, obviously, that Rajputana influence is very, very visible within the city and the different places and the monuments you'd see. So all of those influences do also show up. But historically also very, very significant in terms of being home to these Rajput chieftains, and especially the Rathore Rajputs, right? So very, very enterprising people as well. The Marwaris, like we call them. Very, very enterprising people, and they've kind of really prospered over time in the different vocations and the enterprising, just by the enterprising nature they have. So we're really looking forward to exploring and touching upon a lot of those aspects as we talk through this. But tell us a little bit more about your visit or visits to Jodhpur and how you would like to take us around the city.
So I've been to Jodhpur, I think 3-4 times. I'm not sure. Like I've lost count because, like I said, my sister's there. So we would just, whenever I was traveling or if Rajasthan was planned, I was like, you know what, let's just stop by Jodhpur. So I feel like Jodhpur has so much, right? In terms of culture, in terms of architecture, food, history, there's a lot. So it's always difficult to cover a single destination in one visit. But because my sister spent so long there, I feel like she's taken me to a lot of these really cool places. So I think over this discussion, we're going to be talking about like these major sites as well, like Mehrangarh, of course, like the forts, the palaces, all of that, plus a few tidbits here and there, which I managed to discover while exploring. So maybe we could start with like the bigger things that people usually go to Jodhpur for and then go into the secrets.
Okay. And what about traveling? I mean, the time of the year, because we know that Rajasthan might get pretty, of course, it does get pretty hot during summer. So when do you think is the best time for one to visit?
Summer is blisteringly hot, I would suggest. Mid-October to like maybe early March would be great.
Okay.
Yeah. December, Jan is the best because it's not for Jaisalmer because you'll freeze, but Jodhpur definitely, and other parts of Rajasthan, I think the winter months are fantastic.
Okay, lovely. Yeah. I think so. That's some great context setting before we get into the specifics. Now let's jump into the itinerary and start off by Mehrangarh Fort, yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Awesome. So take us with you, Preeti, and tell us a little bit more about the fort itself and how your experience was going around the fort.
So Mehrangarh is like the crowning jewel, like when you get to Jodhpur, you will see it. You don't have to really go looking for it because you will definitely see Mehrangarh, that imposing structure atop a hill staring down at you. And there's this vibe, this whole royal, regal kind of a feel that makes you want to go there. So Jodhpur was initially enclosed within the walls of Mehrangarh Fort. And as the city grew, that's when, Old City grew a little more, and what we know as the Blue City now, that kind of sprung up. So that whole area is called the Old City, and going to Mehrangarh, it's an absolute must-do. So I would suggest going either early in the morning, like just when it opens, or going a little before sunset, like around 4:30. So you can spend a couple of hours and watch the sunset from there. I think one thing that is really fantastic is the stories, right? Like we've all heard of the Rajputs. We know we have some idea about the history and the stories. But one thing that really struck me about Mehrangarh and its history itself is that before it was built, a Brahmin was consulted, and obviously, everything is done as per traditions and astrology and all of that. And the Brahmin told the rulers at the time that a member of the Brahmin clan has to sacrifice himself, and only then can the fort be built. Otherwise, it will be cursed. When I heard that, I think like the hair on my arm stood up because
Yeah.
right, like imagine asking someone to lay down their life so that the foundation stone can be laid upon that person's body. It's so,
Oh my God.
yeah, it's
Oh.
heart-rending. But someone did volunteer.
Wow. Are you serious?
Yes, and he was buried alive, and
Okay.
the foundation stone was laid on his body. In fact, even now, when you go to Mehrangarh, you will see that there is it's like a gravestone kind of a marking. There's a stone set in the wall of the fort which marks where he was buried.
Oh. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And call it coincidence or not, they never lost the fort, right? Like even when princely states were converted, it's like the fort was never
Right.
given up to the government. It was always maintained in a trust. So
Right.
I don't know if people want to believe in it or not, but it turned out in a certain manner. So,
True. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. To your point, I did read up that as well, that this saint or sage, whoever recommended this, and once this was done, it was actually one of the two forts, this and I believe the fort of Bikaner, if I'm not wrong, just the two forts that actually are still with the Rajputs.
Yeah.
Right? They, like a lot of the others were either lost or just abandoned and things like that, but these two, they remained. So I guess that's why it's like folklore or urban legend for a reason, that it probably did work out that way for them as well. But yeah, a little bit eerie to just so you see this as you enter the fort right at the beginning, or is this somewhere
No, it's
internal?
It's
Okay.
right after the entrance. So there are a bunch of
Okay.
gates when you enter the fort. The first one is the Jai Pole, which is a victory gate. Then there's the Fateh Pole, which is also the victory gate. So this one is right after the first entrance when you're walking up towards the second entrance of the fort. That's where you see it on the right side. So it's right at the entrance. It's literally the first thing that you will be told when you enter.
Oh.
and also, Preeti, getting to the fort itself, right? I know it's like situated easily 100 to 125 meters on literally a hillock,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's
I
400
believe it
meters
was-
above. 400 feet.
Yeah,
sorry.
getting there. Do you just walk it through, or do you have to like hail a rickshaw or something to get to the top, or how is it? Just winding lanes around the hill? How do you get there?
So getting to the main entrance of the fort, you can take any kind of public transport to get there. But once you're inside, I would recommend walking. I think that's the best way to do it. But for those who want to get to the top, there is also a glass lift.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really modern and really fancy. I didn't go in it because I wanted to walk. But that's usually used by people who can't really walk a lot, because honestly, the fort itself, it's quite a steep slope, and
Okay.
you can tend to slip on the stone a little bit because there's a lot of footfall, right? So the stones are actually quite
Right.
polished, so you want to be wearing decent footwear, otherwise it's very easy to slip.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So you go to the gate, and it's a little bit of a little bit of an eerie start, just getting into the backstories and the folklore associated to this. But what next? Like, what else did you check out within the fort?
I think when you start walking into the fort itself, there are these musicians who are greeting you, and all of a sudden, even though it starts really scarily, it's like suddenly there's this whole uplifting kind of a whole environment, because there are singers over there who are welcoming you. Classic Padharo Mare Days. And then it's a classic, man. It is a classic.
Yeah.
And then as you walk in, you are, there's this courtyard, which is, it's basically where the main complex is, where the Divaneyan, the Divane Khas, everything inside. There are these exhibits, there are the jharokas from which the ladies would glance out. So you're in that courtyard, which is in the middle of all of these buildings. And that is actually where you start experiencing the real royal architecture, the Marwar architecture with the Mughal influences. So that's where you end up. And one thing that I loved over there, it's like all of these old structures, right? They have this whole influence of jewelry. So I was having a lot of fun, because when you see the facade of the building, you will start looking at things like chandbalis, and you will see like,
Oh.
it's beautiful. It's very, very intricate. It's beautiful. And you just tend to wonder how skilled were these architects back
I
in
know.
the day.
Right.
They
Wow.
just make that building come to life. All of a sudden, you're transported to the lives of the royals all those years back. So you've gone through the whole warlike structure in the beginning, because obviously it's very, very tightly
Sure.
protected. You've gone through the whole eerie backstory, and suddenly you are in royal Rajasthan. Like, you're there
Right.
for the whole whimsical aspect of it, and it's beautiful. That's where your exhibits are.
Yeah, and I was just going to add that from the security aspect of it also, right, that you added that this has like several gates or doors, I guess. And apparently there's about 7 of them in total, just for that security aspect of it, because throughout the period there was the kings, the Rajputs, were constantly involved in skirmishes, either with Jaipur, right, the kingdom of Jaipur at that time, and much later the Mughals and everything. So the king, Rao Jodha, he actually moved the capital from Mandor to Jodhpur. He set it up because this was more secure, and also, like you mentioned, right, the location as well is very impregnable of sorts, because it's on top of a hill. It's very difficult to conquer as well, right? So that kind of exterior, that's where I think it comes from. But yeah, inside the fort, if you look at it, it's a completely different scene together, right? Going by the descriptions you're giving, and especially the jalis, the lattices, the chhatris, and all of those are very typical to a lot of the Rajasthani style of architecture. Plus, obviously, you have the Mughal influences built over time, and I also believe that structures within the fort as well, they were literally built over the decades that followed.
Yeah.
Right, as new kings came on, they just continued to add on more palaces and more structures within the fort. So must have been an interesting experience going around those as well. Would you like to call out some of these specific perhaps structures or monuments within the fort that you saw, Preeti?
So, I think one of the most beautiful rooms inside is obviously the Sheesh Mahal. It is so beautiful because it's got thousands of mirrors, on the walls and on top, and there's enamel work as well that goes with it. So, I think one thing that even the guides love to do, right, is just shine a light inside or just take a candle just to show how the light just bounces off the walls and the ceiling. Is really stunning. There is the Takht Vilas, which is the room of strength. I think that's where, the king used to, it was his private chambers of sorts. So there was that. The Phool Mahal is another one that's beautiful. It's where the king would entertain his guests. It's like this giant courtroom, and it's got these high arches and plush upholstery and sofas and all of that everywhere. And there's obviously a throne. And I think one thing that it's called Phool Mahal because of the intricate flower kind of work that's done around the arches. It's all painted in gold and all these bright colors. And that is one of it stands out. Like the Sheesh Mahal obviously stands out, but when you see the Phool Mahal, you'll know why it just pops and why that was used to entertain guests, because why wouldn't you want to show them the best room in the house?
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And a couple of others also, like you mentioned, the Takht Mahal, that I found that the Takht Vilas, I guess, right? I found that interesting. And there was one more, Moti Mahal as well, I believe. That looked very interesting too. Had a lot of more of the British influence in this case, with all of the stained glass and all of that involved in the architecture. Yeah. And I also believe there is a museum or a few galleries within the premises of the fort as well. Preeti, did you get a chance to check those out?
Yes. I think the first one that they show you is the one with a whole host of palanquins. There are so many different kinds of palanquins. I was stunned. There are so many of these. But I think the biggest one over there is the golden one, the Mahadol. So basically, palanquins are used by queens, right, to transport them from one place to another. So they've actually really maintained all of those and kept it. It's really very, very interesting and very beautiful. It's like a novelty for us. I could never imagine traveling in a palanquin. So
I know.
Also one of a kind, right? You usually don't see this around as much, I guess, right? A museum or a gallery of palanquins.
Yeah.
I haven't really come across one in my previous travels either. So very unique that way. And I also saw a few others that cover off things like there's one gallery just for the paintings and another one for armory and things of war and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorites. The arms and armory. Yeah. They've got so many different kinds of these daggers and dhals and talwars and whatnot. I found myself really wanting a Qatar for some reason, and I still want it. I think it's a very interesting weapon to have. But, also what's really cool is that they've given complete details of where these have been made, where these have been picked up, who used what at what time. And then you just end up thinking about, if you were there back then, what would be your weapon of choice? Mine is clearly a Qatar. Right. What's yours, guys?
Yeah. I think that's the charm about these palaces and these galleries, right? Like when you look at it, you're just transformed back into that era and you can visualize it. Like you'll be like, oh my God, if I was standing here and if this was like a life palace being used to be decorated like this and people walking here and
Yeah. It's literally a trip through time.
I'm very lazy, Preeti. I'll just go for the palanquin, not the Qatar. Something with a fan inside, maybe. But yeah, jokes apart. But another interesting one I came across was also a turban gallery, I understand, because Rajasthani turbans are also very, very popular and unique. Yeah, so there was a gallery for turbans. I don't know if this is a seasonal thing or something, or they have it the whole time, but that one's also very interesting and unique to this part of the country, I believe.
Yes, they have it the whole time. Also because, so when you look at Jodhpur's history, right, like there's a lot of caste coming up, like in terms of the whole Brahmin thing, the blue houses, all of that. So that is also something that was kind of signified by turbans. So the guide will actually tell you the different types of turbans used by different members of castes. Even in terms of the poshaks or the outfits that are worn. There's like a whole textile section where there are turbans, there are robes, chhatris, the kind of upholstery used, the swings. Yeah, so basically like wherever cloth was used and what it signifies. And it was all so carefully selected. Like the king will wear a certain kind of clothing, Brahmin will wear a certain kind of clothing, someone else will have a different turban, even the material used for the turban cloths, whether it's a warrior or not, it's all very, very different. And there are different colors for different moods, different ceremonies. So that's also why it's a year-round thing, because you tend to see what is worn at different times of the year as well.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things as well. And Preeti, any other points of interest or things you found noteworthy when you roamed around? Because it's a pretty big fort also, yeah? You need a good 2 to 3 hours, I'm assuming, to get around the fort and check it out. Check out all of these different galleries and palaces and things like that.
Easily. You need 2-3 hours. And you don't want to rush it also because the fort closes by 6:30 latest. Like they literally had to herd us out because I really wanted to see the sunset. So the sun, it's beautiful. It's really stunning from there. And also because you're in an iconic landmark of Rajasthan, of Jodhpur. So you need like a good 2-3 hours to, slowly go around and see the entire place. You also want to check out these giant cannons. So earlier they used to allow people to go and actually see the cannon. But now they've cordoned off the area. You can see it from a distance. But it's still worth seeing. It's massive. It's massive. It blew my mind. So that's not really in any of the exhibits. It's not something that your guide will show you, specifically. But it's when you're exiting, you just need to take like a short detour down instead of going out completely, and you'll see the cannon. Like I think that's also where you can see the best sunset. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. And that was from a vantage point, being at a little bit of a height. You could only imagine when it was in use, yeah?
Yeah, that's also where you'll see the whole blue city out under you, right? So, yeah, it's gorgeous. I think that was one of those moments when everything came together for me, It's like this is the essence of Jodhpur, so to speak.
Right.
Absolutely. And thank you for kind of calling that out really well as well. So from here, what plan next? Like, where did you move on to, or what point do you want to cover off next?
I think we can head to Jaswant. Let's do Jaswant first. So Jaswant is actually a mausoleum. It's a network of cenotaphs where the royals of Jodhpur are laid to rest. And I feel like Rajasthan really knows how to do its resting places because it is a stunning piece of architecture. Yeah, it's very delicate to look at, when you, like if I have to draw a direct comparison between Mehrangarh and Jaswant, I'd say that this one is so elegant and intricate while the fort is imposing and really strong. You're right, it's white marble, which gives it a very, very ethereal kind of a look. And the best time to actually go to Jaswant is sunrise. It doesn't open then, but it opens for a sunrise performance during Sufi music festivals that take place in Jodhpur. So, they are held in Jaswant itself. So, like the Sacred Space Festival, I think it's called, and Jodhpur Riff, the early morning shows are there, which is actually the best time to see Jaswant because, in those soft orange rays of the morning light, that's when the marble really, it's very thin marble, so it reflects and kind of looks translucent. And that just transports the architecture to a different level. This is one of those places where you actually see that blend between Rajputana and Mughal architecture.
Yeah, definitely. It's also been referred, I don't know if it's just a local thing, it's been referred to as the Taj of Marwar, also in a lot of places. And yeah, it derives its name from Maharaj Jaswant Singh, built by his son, I believe,
Maharaj
Sardar Singh.
Yeah.
And in memory of Maharaj Jaswant Singh, so that's how it gets its name. But perhaps a smaller structure as well, right? To compare to the fort and obviously the different things within the fort, you could cover this off a bit quicker, I'm assuming.
Yeah. You don't need as much time over here. So basically, the white marble structure, you can go inside it, and there are these paintings of all the rulers who've been laid to rest in Jaswanthara itself. So it's like a quick walkthrough over there. And then you can just explore the grounds a little bit, because there are like smaller cenotaphs with really beautiful jharokas and pillars and arches and all.
Okay, awesome. And where next to after Jaswanthara?
After Jaswanthara, Rao Jodha Rock Park. I think, this was a surprise for me. So it's basically a desert rock park, which is within the complex of Mehrangarh, but you're actually going under the city walls to explore this.
Oh, okay, interesting. It didn't quite surface, like initially also while I was looking up, it didn't quite surface too much. But to your point, it's like literally almost like you could say premises of the fort or just around the fort, yeah?
Yeah. So this is actually quite recent. Maybe that's also why it doesn't come up a lot. It was set up in 2006. So that's very, very early. Like as compared to the fort, which is like years and years old, right?
Yeah. So what is this park about, Preeti?
So this one was built to preserve the natural ecology and the natural heritage of Jodhpur. Like when you think of Rajasthan, you would probably think of the desert first, and then of heritage in terms of like a fort and cacti and all of that, right? Like very, very desert.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's a lot, like the whole the rocks. There are so many different types of rocks. There's volcanic rock, there's sandstone, which is what kind of builds the walls of the fort. So you tend to see this part of Jodhpur, which you wouldn't normally expect. And they've done a beautiful job of preserving it. Like it's really well curated trails that go through the whole rocky garden area. You see different kinds of plants, succulents, different kinds of rocks. I learned a new word. I learned this word lithophytes, which is basically plants that grow through the rock. Yeah, it's quite interesting. So it's just one of those things you might want to explore if you have this curiosity about the landscape of where you're at.
Yeah, very nice. So a very different kind of experience also, I would say, compared to the previous two. One was obviously the fort and the Jaswanthara, which are both, I guess, kind of monuments and a lot more towards history and architecture. This one is a little bit more nature oriented, I would say, right? So that way it adds that to the mix as well. What plans next? Where do you think we should cover off next?
We can talk about Umaid Bhawan and Turji Ka Jhalra. Like these are at two completely different places though. So Umaid Bhawan is basically the royal residence, Maharaj Gaj Singh and his family. So like a lot of Umaid Bhawan is not accessible to the public because it's been converted into a hotel, which I think we all saw a very high profile wedding happen over there a few years back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
Of course.
yeah.
Pretty chops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the only time that we would have gotten to see the inside of Umaid Bhawan, that part of it, because as a visitor, you can't really go there. But what you can see is the museum. And there are two different kinds of museums. One is, like your typical museum with a lot of photographs and paintings from history and all of that. So you see a lot of stories inside. And the other one is the vintage car museum, which I really liked. Like they have the family has a collection of vintage cars, and like you can't really go into that area. It's covered by it. You can just see through glass basically. But it's really cool. Vintage cars are really cool. Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And also, while looking up on Umaid Bhawan, right, the one interesting thing I saw again in terms of the legends and the folklores associated to it, right, Preeti? You did mention about the previous Brahman or the saint who actually helped lay that foundation stone, right? But there's another story as well, a related story, I guess, where there was actually another sage or a Brahman who used to live on that hill where Mehrangarh was built, and he was dislocated when the Raja wanted to build the fort there, and he cursed, saying that the fort or the ruler will see, or the region will see, a period of drought every few years. And that's actually also played out that way, that droughts are something that's not uncommon in the region. But Umaid Bhavan, how it came across was that there was a period of severe drought, I believe around the period when it was built, early 1900s, when the Raja at that time, he actually commissioned building of this palace so that people could find employment, because the drought severely hit all of the occupations and people were out of work. So one of the reasons that Umaid Bhavan was commissioned was to provide employment to the general populace there. So that was an interesting little bit of a backstory I stumbled upon while looking up on Umaid Bhavan. But yeah, like to your point, it's really magnificent looking place. And also, I don't know, that palatial part of it, the royal residence part of it, I read that it had like 300 odd rooms, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's together across, including the hotel as well, or just that place, but it just reminded me of,
I
I
would
don't
say
know.
just the residence. It's their
I think
capability.
it's the residence. Even I don't really know clearly, but I do think it's the residence.
Yeah,
It's
seriously.
crazy. But yeah, how much time did you spend here?
Just about half an hour actually, because you just get to see the vintage cars, and like it's a very short
Okay.
circuit through the museum part of it. So you don't need more than half an hour, 40 minutes.
Right. And in terms of the architecture itself also, this one again has the influences of more of a Indo-Sassanic
Yeah.
type, and more modern, relatively modern structure also, right? I mean, early 1900s, 1929 I believe is when it was initiated. So that way, a little modern architecture also comparatively. So that's one thing that perhaps stands out too. What plans next? You said we should cover off Turji Ka Jhalra
Yeah, let's
after
go to
this.
Turji. So Turji Ka Jhalra is basically the heart of the old city. It's one of those places where you'd want to stay, like that area. It's where you'd want to stay when you're visiting Jodhpur. But it's really famous because it's a step well. And Rajasthan has like a lot of these kunds, right? Like there is Panna Meena Ka Kund in Jaipur, and then there is Turji Ka Jhalra Bawdi in Jodhpur. So this was built in the 1740s, and this was built by the Queen Consort of Maharaj Abhay Singh. The thing is that this is a tradition, like step wells are usually built by the queens or the consorts. It's usually done by them, and there are like usually a lot of stories here. Like either the queen used to come to bathe here or offer prayers here or something like that. And now it's just a very, very popular tourist attraction.
Okay.
Right, and also like you said, right, almost middle of the city, but very unassuming, obviously, because it's a step well. It doesn't stand out until you're closer to it. It seems like it pops out of nowhere. when you get to
Like
there.
a lot of
Yeah.
people, they actually go looking for it, and they feel like there's going to be like a massive direction board or a signboard or something, but no, it's just there, like you'll see it and you're like, oh, there it is.
Exactly. And also I believe like for a long time this was literally misused and used as dumping grounds or whatever, and it was fairly recently that it was actually gotten back and
Restored.
They went on a process to restore it, but otherwise like some people didn't even know that it existed. It was just using as dumping grounds. So that it also speaks a little bit as to how easily things can get lost, right? Because if you look at the structure, it's marvelous,
It's
right?
marvelous.
As a step well. And it's not just a step well, like within the step well as well, the different structures and things like that, the intricate architecture, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, really, and I'm glad that it's been restored, because you don't really see this a lot. Like this kind of stuff really needs to be preserved. Those diamond steps and all, it's very, very unique.
And I'm assuming, given that it's not too huge, you don't really have to spend too much time like getting to here or even looking around. You could make this a part of your quick day itinerary while you're visiting the other places.
Yeah, so basically when you're in the Ghantaghar area and you're in that old city area, you can just stop by here for 15-20 minutes. Although, if you want to go and jump in it, that's a different discussion. Like there are kids who do backflips into the stepwell, and it's not strictly illegal because there's no lifeguard or anything, but kids do it. Like people do it, they just jump off the stepwell. Like you don't want to shower in the morning, you can just go jump off, then take a shower, get on with your day.
Okay, so maybe you could add that to the bucket list if you'd like to jump off a step well.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. But yeah, what was your plan? Did you plan on heading out to the Sardar Market in the old city area from here, or how did you mix it up?
So we actually stayed at a hotel that faced the stepwell. So then it was just my daily view from the window. But this is if this is part of the itinerary, then you'd want to connect it with Ghantaghar and Sardar Market, which is basically where you want to go for all of your shopping.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. And speak a little bit about that as well. And even before we get to maybe Sardar Market and Ghantaghar, the old city as well, right? I mean, you could perhaps spend a day just getting lost in the old city with the blue walls and the blue buildings. Yeah,
Oh,
Preeti?
absolutely. Those tiny lanes and little by lanes, and you can just walk. You can just walk and get lost, and you will end up at the other side of the whole old city area. I think the blue walls are really famous, right, in Jodhpur, and they're refreshed before Diwali every year. So, if one does want to see the blue walls specifically, then that's the best time to go. Although now, because there's a lot of sandstone that is used, a lot of residents just tend to leave it as that beige tone. But like the deeper you walk around in the old city area, the more your chances of finding those really, really special blue walls that give the city its moniker, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also, obviously, it's beautiful, and given that it almost becomes like the identity of the city, right? The blue city, or compared to the pink city and things like that. But just looking a little bit deeper into that, also, I mean, I would say it's probably the norm back in the day, but now it can seem a little disturbing at times, right? It has actually, like some accounts say that it's actually, like you called out, it's to segregate houses of Brahmins from the others and things like that. So there is that bit. But I did see a couple of other possible factors also. That one I read was that indigo plantations, right? They were really close by in the vicinity. So perhaps one of the reasons it was blue was that they just used that. It was easily accessible and available. That was one of the things. And the other thing, obviously, is that it keeps the houses cool.
Yeah. So there are a lot of theories that float around. I think one of the most popular ones is what you said first, right? To separate different castes. And then, of course, to keep the place cool. I think now it's also become like a very tourist attraction kind of a thing. Like people are driven to Jodhpur because it's called the Blue City. So a lot of the houses do repaint just for that, because it attracts a lot of people from all over the world. So I feel like reasons have just changed over time. It may have started somewhere, but it's moved on to something else now.
Yeah, definitely. But it does certainly remain as the identity of Jodhpur. And to your earlier point, right, view from the Mehrangarh fort overlooking the blue old city, it's just marvelous.
Yeah, absolutely. That's gorgeous.
And just take us around, like once, like obviously you could spend hours together just exploring the old city, but there's a couple of important points within the old city as well, like you called out the markets, right? Mainly the Sardar Market and the Ghantaghar, the iconic Ghantaghar. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think when you're going to Jodhpur, and if you want to do any kind of shopping, or you have anything that you want to pick up, or even if you don't know that you want something, you'll find it at Ghantaghar. It's just that kind
I
of
think
place.
that's the better plan. You have to go shopping.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ghantaghar is like the whole junction, right? The whole area is called Ghantaghar. There are a lot of these roadside stalls. There are people setting up little carts with their wares over there. So it doesn't matter what you're looking for or not looking for. You're going to find it there, whether it is bandhej saris and dupattas, whether you're looking for jewelry. There's a very, very famous bangle market. Like just when you step out from Ghantaghar, and instead of going straight towards Sardar Bazaar, if you just take a right, that entire lane has 100 bangle shops.
Okay.
Yeah, and because the lakh bangles there are so famous, that's what really sells in all of these designs and colors. It's very, very traditional to Jodhpur.
Yeah, I think shopping is something that you actually don't need things, but till you see them, and then when you see them, you really need them.
Yeah, and this area does it really well. Like, just the fact that they're there, it's like, they're telling you that you need this.
Probably do a full episode just on shopping in Jodhpur. Yeah. Shopping anywhere, I guess. Yeah, Faiza?
Of course, yeah. As long as you're like paying, Sefi, like along with me to just pay and carry the bags, I'm good.
Okay. Noted. But yeah, like to your point as well. And actually the handicraft work, and it's actually pretty big part of Jodhpur's overall economy as well. The different handicrafts and the little cottage industries that make all of the jyotis, the mochis, and stuff like that you mentioned. So all of that is very popular. So do save some time. Maybe out of that 4-5 day itinerary, save a good day for just going around these different local markets. Yeah, you'll find a number of things you could pick up.
I would say half a day just so that it's healthier for your wallet, nothing else.
Exactly. Now, along with shopping, another thing also in these, especially in these old city area as well as around the local markets, is food, right? That's also something very unique to Jodhpur, even, right? Not just overall Rajasthan, just Jodhpur. Do you want to touch upon some of the different options and the ones you explored, Preeti?
Where do I start? Oh my god. Yeah, so Jodhpur has so many incredible places to eat, and all of these range from high-end restaurants to cafes because of the student culture and tourism, and also street side joints where you can get some of the best local nosh ever. So I just want to name a few, and this few might go into quite a few. But now that we're in the Ghantaghar area, there is this little pokey little joint called Omelette Shop. It's called the Omelette Shop, and you won't miss it because it's at the corner of the gate that leads to Ghantaghar from the residential area. It's extremely famous. It's you might not think it is, when you look at it, and you might be a little concerned about hygiene. But I've been there twice, and he makes amazing omelettes. His omelettes they're so good. I never want to eat another omelette at a hotel again. But the specialty that you have to try over there, anybody visiting, you have to try the Michael Baba omelette. So it's it's an interesting name.
Quite an interesting name.
Yeah, who's this? Michael Jackson or who's this?
So this
Michael Baba.
Michael is basically a tourist who would come to Jodhpur for 4 months of a year. And every morning he would come and have his breakfast at the omelette shop, and he would ask them to make it in a very special way. So it's got a number of layers. It's got a pizza base, and then it's got eggs, it's got these masalas, it's got mayonnaise, it's got cheese, it's got some vegetables, and then it's covered with another half of a pizza base. And that's toasted.
My God.
Yeah. It's heavy, but I don't know what he puts in it, but it's delicious. Yeah, and this is not like a typical Rajasthani dish, but it is very, very unique to Jodhpur.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely do check it out. I think very interesting. I will make sure to check out the Michael Baba omelette, especially given the description.
I'm kind of envious of that Michael person, because I want some food to be named after me.
Just stay somewhere for 4 months.
Yeah, and come up with some recipe and keep going there and tell them to make it, and then make it famous.
That's how you crack it. Yeah, but I want to move into the traditional stuff now. The stuff that Jodhpur specifically is famous for, and I think one thing that everyone should try is the pyaz ki kachori. Yeah, Jodhpur is super famous for pyaz ki kachori, and you should have it at Surya Namkeen in Jalori Gate. Yeah, because it's fresh and it's got this amazing pyaz wala masala. There are the regular kachoris which you get in everywhere. But then the pyaz ki kachori is so delicious. It's got this beautiful mix of masalas and pyaz, and it's fried. It's deep fried, so it's not the healthiest thing alive. But it's got a really crumbly outer layer, and it bursts in your mouth in this whole volcanic explosion of flavors. And when you have it with those chutneys that they serve it with, it's very, very local. Surya's is little pokey joint again, which is flooded with locals, which is why it's good.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the trick, right? Wherever you're seeing the locals flocking, you have to go try those places.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Not too far from Surya Namkeen in Jalori itself, there's this place called Shandar Sweet Home. And get this, they serve special sabzis. And so they're called special sabzis because when you think of a vegetable, you're probably thinking of aloo or bhindi or something. But these guys use... These guys make gulab jamun ki sabzi, rasmalai ki sabzi, haldi ki sabzi.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay,
I've never heard of that.
How to react to that? So what is it like? How do you eat that with usual your roti or chapati or whatever?
Yeah, you get a butter tandoori roti or a butter naan or a butter something because everything is loaded with butter over there. So these sabzis basically they are it's before the gulab jamun is dipped in chashni, right? Like it's that mawa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the mawa, and in case of rasmalai, it's the chena. They use that and
Yeah.
they mix it up in these gravies that you would normally make like a paneer makhan wala type in. Like it's not the same thing, but like that kind of a gravy. It's a savory gravy. And like when you try it, they will serve it with your vinegar wala onions and nimbu by the side, and the taste is very different. It's very different. I'm not sure if I'll have it again, but it's definitely worth a shot because you're not gonna get to try this
course.
anywhere else. And you're not gonna
Exactly,
make it at
yeah.
home. So
Definitely.
Yeah, never heard
definitely.
of this, to be honest,
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Sabji.
it's very
Dessert
very
ki sabji.
local to Jodhpur.
Oh, okay. That is something that you have to try then.
Yeah, I'll leave it for the last, I think.
No, I would definitely say have it first because you're gonna be like, whoa, what was this? It's very interesting. Like maybe it's also something that you tend to develop a taste for over time because not a lot of
Right.
people like
True,
sweet
yeah.
vegetables or something that's like
Yeah.
mama. But
Yeah.
it's very popular. I think something that one must absolutely indulge in Rajasthan is a Rajasthani thali. Like that gigantic plate with like this plethora of curries and dals and khichdis and sabzis and kachoris and dal bati and I could go on. Like there's a lot. So I had the thali at Gypsy. I'm not going to say a lot about this. I'm just going to recommend Gypsy for the Rajasthani thali to everyone. Just go there and that's like a food coma. Don't plan anything for the rest of the day because you're going to be passed out.
Nice.
And also, Preeti, some of these like cafes that you were calling out earlier, right? Would you like to call out some of those? Because those have also kind of popped up quite a few, and especially with the, like I said, the student population as well as the foreign, I guess there's a lot of influx of foreigners, foreign tourists as well, right? So a lot of these cafes, and especially the cafes for, say, rooftop cafes that help you catch a glimpse of the sunset while looking at the Mehrangarh fort, all of those are also very popular these days, yeah?
Yeah.
Such joints?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a sucker for cafes, so I've obviously gone to a lot of them. And because my sister's a student over there, they are usually spending all of their time, their free time, I should add, at cafes. There's one that I really love the pizzas at. It's called Sparrows. Like their cold coffee and their pizza is really, really good. It's the thin crust wood-fired pizzas.
All right.
Yeah, and their hummus platter is incredible as well. There's a lot of Lebanese food that you'll get in Rajasthan. Where you can go for a view is this place called Le Monk. And again, it's your classic pastas and pizzas, really delicious ones. But the fun story behind this is that Le Monk was started by a resident of Jodhpur and his girlfriend moved here from London to kind of be with him and to start this restaurant. So she's actually English, but like a lot of people now say that she's more Rajasthani than anybody else they know. So Le Monk is one, and that's where you can actually get really nice views of Mehrangarh.
Okay. Yeah, I really envy the students of these days. Back in the day,
Yeah.
I just used to spend my time in the college canteen, not
Yeah,
in cafes, with my paltry 200 rupee monthly, what's that, pocket money. Right? Yeah. But yeah, definitely for people interested in cafes, there's a lot of options, right? Especially, like I said, these rooftop cafes and the ones with a view and everything. You can just go and chill as you watch the sunset and spend some time there. And any other food-related places or experiences you tried out?
Yeah, I want to mention two places here. These are experiential and they are high-end. One is Khasbagh, which is on Police Line Road. And Police Line Road is where all of these fancy hotels are, like these are the exquisite places where you want to go when you just want to enjoy luxury. And the food in Khasbagh, I had a gatta curry and I love gatta curry, like gatteri sabzi.
Okay, what is that?
Gatta is made of besan and it's cooked in a curry. So it's, how do I explain this? It's like pieces of besan, which is made in a Rajasthani curry. So it's again like one of those sabzis that is not really a sabzi. Okay, so like besan sausages. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
curry.
it's like tiny little dumplingy thingies, like they're really small. Yeah. It's one of those traditional dishes and it is really, really delicious. Best had with like a butter naan or a tandoori roti.
So wonderful. Yeah. Perhaps we could make part 2 and part 3 of this as one for shopping and one for food.
Of course.
Yeah, easily. Cool. I think is that pretty much. I think I'll take a break, especially with the
fasting.
and with the food.
No,
I'll
that's all. I'm not going to
probably
add
drool
more.
now next. Yeah, cool. now we've covered off a lot of the places in the old city area, right? You covered the shopping bits, the food bits as well, many of them around this area. The other interesting fact I came across was that polo, right? Polo was also pretty popular during the time of the Rajas and everything. And related to that, the riding breeches, the pants basically that you wear, they're actually called Jodhpur breeches, right? So that's, Jodhpur exactly. So that's very popular and related to the region. And as well as Bandgalas also apparently had a initial association to the region. So that's something really interesting I came across. And the couple of things you mentioned earlier as well, for someone who's a connoisseur of art and music and things like that, there's the important festivals, RIF being one of them, the folk festival, Rajasthan International Folk Festival, Preeti, that you mentioned. Did you say Jaswanthada that this happens at?
Yeah, that's one of the locations.
Yeah, one of the places, So things like that are also a lot of the other experiences that one can indulge in if you're looking at things beyond the things we discussed upon. But Preeti, I'd really, really like to thank you for kind of calling out a lot of these wonderful, wonderful places, right? Yeah. For me, at least up until now, I would just associate Jodhpur and the Mehrangarh fort to what was that? The Dark Knight Rises. You get a glimpse in that and looks like magnificent, but that's about it. But thank you so much for kind of taking us through like the different aspects and the different colors and just the flavors of Rajasthan and Jodhpur specifically, right? That we covered off right from the identity with the blue city and the history and the backstories behind that to obviously the food and the shopping bit of it that we couldn't really have enough of.
Yeah, pretty much like a local, like you've given us all those insights about the shopping and the food. So thank you so much. And even the new dishes, like so many new dishes. I think in the coming days I'm going to Google the recipes and try making gatte ki sabzi and a lot of things.
And Preeti is almost a local, I think, with Preeti's sister actually being there for a few years.
Yeah,
Preeti
that really
can be
helped,
considered local.
So thank you so much, Preeti.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was wonderful to have you.
No, I'm just glad. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so glad I could relive all of this with you, and just talking about it with you guys has brought back so many stories. Thank you so much for having me here. It's just been so much fun.
That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.